After the Gorakhpur hospital tragedy, as many as 55 other infants have died due to the lack of proper facilities in the special newborn care unit of the Nashik civil hospital last month. This comes just days after 49 children were reported dead at a hospital in Farrukhabad, allegedly due to a lack of oxygen. In Gorakhpur too, 63 kids had died in a span of 5 days, leading to allegations of medical negligence. It was alleged then that the hospital was running short of oxygen, and neither the authorities nor the government did anything to prevent the deaths since April. Now, 187 infants have died since April in the unit, with 55 deaths reported last month. Hospital authorities, however, denied reports that the deaths were caused by medical negligence. It's being alleged that the main reason for the deaths was due to the lack of ventilators.
याच्यामध्ये चार मुलं ठेवले जातात, तीन मुलं ठेवले जात आहेत. तर मग कदाचित एखाद्याचा काय प्रॉब्लेम असू शकतो, तो दुसऱ्या बाळाला पण तो ट्रान्सफर होऊ शकतो. म्हणजे ह्याही गोष्टी आढळत आहे. आणि त्याच्यानंतर मग बऱ्याचशा आम्ही बाळाविषयी चौकशी करायला गेलो तर अशी म्हणजे प्रत्येक वेळेस ती चौकशी पण आम्हाला करू दिली जात नाही. म्हणजे तो एक प्रॉब्लेम येतो.
10-11 दिवस झाले तरी आमचे बाळाचे अजूनही काही नाही का बा व्यवस्थित आहे का काही असं काहीच नाही. अजून रोज आम्ही विचारायला जातो तर तुमचं बाळ सिरियस असं तसं बोलतात.
पिछले 3 महीने से अप्रैल तो अगस्त से जो डेथ हुआ है, जून में 262 के अगेंस्ट 35 डेथ है, जुलाई में 1314 के अगेंस्ट 46 डेथ है और अगस्त में 346 के अगेंस्ट में 55 डेथ है. हमारे स्टाफ का कुछ कमी नहीं है, ऑक्सीजन सब कुछ बराबर है. एज लाइक प्राइवेट के लेवल का हमारे एसएनसी है. हमारे नियरअबाउट 10 to 12 पेडियाट्रिशियन अवेलेबल है. पूरा ये 8-8 घंटे का उनका ड्यूटी रहता है. और दूसरी बात मेडिसिन और सब कुछ हमारे उसका कुछ भी कमी नहीं है.
Dr. N.C. Mishra, the former director of AIIMS, joins me live on the broadcast to talk more about what's happened in Nashik, in Farrukhabad and also in Gorakhpur. Sir, good evening. Thanks so much for speaking with us here at WION. Appreciate you taking out the time. What do you make of the hospital's stand in this case, saying that this was not a case of medical negligence?
No, it may be a case of medical negligence, but I think more so to the light, this what you are discussing and seeing, whether in Gorakhpur or Farrukhabad or Nashik, it is tip of the iceberg if you look at the total public health care scenario. Even if I heard the medical superintendent or the senior doctor saying that everything is in plenty or adequate, why so many children are dying? Is anybody looking at that? It might not be medical negligence, but there is some system failure somewhere that these children are not taken care in community. So what is happening? I mean, they are dying just like that. So I think we need to investigate thoroughly why this is happening everywhere. You may see more such incidents coming to light from many other public health hospitals.
Right. So do you think that the term negligence is too narrow a term to define what exactly is going on at these hospitals? Because it seems almost as if it's a technical term that is being used almost for escapism from responsibility for what's going wrong. I mean, I can't even imagine the kind of grief, the kind of sorrow that the parents of these children are made to go through. Absolutely. When they're being told that your child has died because 4 3-month-olds are being put within one ventilator. What exactly plagues the system, sir?
Yeah, this exactly plagues the system. He's saying that adequate facilities are available. So if there are no ventilators, then there are no adequate facilities. And why these children, small children, are falling sick? With what disease? Why can't they be taken care in the community that they don't fall sick and they are brought to these suboptimal conditions where optimal treatment is not available? And that's why these children are dying. So we need to go into the depth of these deaths, why it is happening. So many children out of 350 or 46 children dying. It's a very high figure. For whatever reason, this is a very high figure of mortality in 2017 when we have every know-how is there. So we need to investigate thoroughly that why such incidences are occurring, whether in Farrukhabad or in Nashik or Gorakhpur, why these children are falling sick, where they can't be taken care of in the community, what the healthcare organization or is doing in the healthcare in the community. I think it actually conveys that there is something very seriously wrong with our primary and secondary care.
Absolutely. Sir, if I can also ask you, you spoke of there needing to be an investigation. Do you think an investigation is enough, or do criminal proceedings need to be brought against parties who are responsible for what's going wrong? And also, who are those parties? Very often when these cases come to light, we hear that the medical superintendent has been sacked, that the head of the hospital has been sacked, that doctors are being taken to task. But this is not clearly just a case of doctors napping on the job. There seems to be a systemic problem. Do you think more people need to be brought to book to answer for these horrific numbers that we're talking about in 2017?
Absolutely. See, we discussed last time, if we still continue to have 1.4, 1.5% of our GDP going into the healthcare, what kind of a healthcare would you expect in public domain? The adequate resources, both human resource, trained human resource, trained paramedic resource, and also equipment need to be there. We cannot expect the doctors to do their job when there are suboptimal conditions are provided. And it's an easy scapegoat. I mentioned in the last thing also to suspend a principal or a medical superintendent. You just eye-washing this in the public view that you have taken action, but I think responsibility lies with our politicians as well, bureaucrats as well, because ultimately they are decision makers providing funds. So Absolutely. If there are no adequate funds for the equipment, their positions are lying vacant, there are no adequate human resource, and these small kids need special care. So if there are enough inadequate the incubators, and inadequate ventilators and other resources, naturally this will keep happening, and we will just do a program and that will be the end of it. So if we want to seriously take this issue, then I think both center and state governments have to respond to that why systemic failure is happening. And at the end of the day, we have to put up resources for healthcare. We cannot just go on and on with 1.4, 1.5% of GDP, and we hope that everything will be okay.
Absolutely. So I don't think you would be alone in your assessment that politicians and bureaucrats need to be taken to task, need to be answerable for what's going on in our medical system. And in fact, you did mention politicians. It was one of Prime Minister Modi's big campaign agendas, a refurbishment of the public healthcare system and a refurbishment of India's education system. Sir, stay with me, Dr. Mishra. I'll request you to stay on with me on the program, because it's not just Nashik that we're talking about. In the past, many children have fallen prey to gross medical negligence in India, and this won't be the last time that something like this will happen. Dr. Mishra just pointed out for us as well that he too agrees that this isn't the last time we're going to hear of a horrific incident like this. The question is, where does the buck stop? Take a look at this report.
Gorakhpur Hospital. More than 70 children died in a span of days. Lack of oxygen supply cited as the reason. Government orders probe. Farrukhabad Hospital. 49 infants dead in less than a month. Parents say lack of oxygen and care resulted in these deaths. Nashik Hospital. 55 kids die in a month's time. Hospital says that's because we admit critical babies who are turned away by other hospitals. That is the grim reality. Indian hospitals turning into graveyards. Every inquiry leads to a probe which is then turned into a file that gathers dust. The Medical Council of India itself says there's only one doctor for more than 1,600 Indians. And out of a total of 8 lakh doctors, only 80% may actually be available for active service. India is ranked a lowly 154th on the Healthcare Access and Quality Index, which makes it amongst the biggest underachievers in Asia. All political parties have expressed outrage over death of children in Gorakhpur, Farrukhabad and now Nashik. But what remains to be seen is what long-term steps will be taken to improve the healthcare system, so these children don't end up as another statistic for the government. Bureau Report, WION.
Dr. Mishra stays with me on the program. Sir, I have another question for you, and this perhaps might be one that might hurt the sentiments of certain doctors. But do you feel that these incidents come to light more at government-run hospitals because the fact is that the salaries and associated perks with hospitals that are run by the government are not up to par when compared to private practices?
No, I think more than salary, it is the poor infrastructure. Poor equipment, adequate equipment is not there, optimal conditions are not provided. You just cannot expect a good vegetable cooked from a rotten tomato or a rotten potato. So I think that is the state of affairs of most government-funded institutions in the states, and that is what needs to change, and it will change only if public demands better quality of care and more such episodes are brought to light. Otherwise, things will remain the same and we will keep discussing, but nothing will change on the ground unless we accept that there is a problem and we need to take care of that.
Sir, can I ask you also, you've been in the medical profession for a long time, your credentials speak for yourself. What is the biggest challenge you yourself has faced as a medical professional in this country?
I think the biggest challenge would be in such places where you are reporting is putting both human and material resource and also adequate training of the staff, which is least cared for, and also accountability. Accountability in our system, whether it's political system, whether it's bureaucratic system, whether it's professional system, is just not there. Nobody is accountable in any. If there is something wrong goes with the train accident, who has been held accountable? Or something happens somewhere, who has been held accountable? So unless we make the system, once we provide adequate infrastructure, adequate working conditions, optimal working conditions, and if the things are not happening, then you can question those who are engaged in this taking care of these children. But you yourself said, there are 4 children on one bed. There are no adequate ventilators. There are no incubators. So what these doctors would do? They would do whatever best they can in the given circumstances. So we need to go into the depth why these children are falling sick in the first place in the community. In large numbers they are brought, and then why adequate care is not being provided, whether it is the lack of resources or it is the lack of attitude or failure on the part of the medical professionals or administrators. I think this needs to be thoroughly, honestly done. Otherwise, you just cannot improve.